I want to talk about Ready Player One. Again. Ready Player One is a 2011 junk food novel written by Ernest Cline that is mostly popular for including a bunch of pop culture references wrapped around a story. It was then adapted into a movie directed by Steven Spielberg in 2018 that is popular for being an actual story. The story being around Wade Watts, a poor kid living in a dystopian future in which the main source of escapism is a worldwide free-reign MMO called Oasis. The creator of the Oasis dies and leaves the ownership of it and his fortune to anyone who can find 3 keys, unlock 3 gates, and be the first to find the MacGuffin known as the Easter egg. Now, I said what I said about the book versus what I said about the movie because as far as the book was concerned when I read it, I had a time. It wasn't a good time, but it was a time. Now, my want to read the book originated from 2 specific things. 1, I always wanted to read the book and wanted to form my own opinion about it after hearing both good and bad things from my friends and creative colleagues. And 2, I didn't necessarily want to go into this movie blind like I did with many movie adaptations in the past. In a way, I'm glad that I read the book first because it helped me differentiate the points between the 2 mediums that I'm going to make in this video. On the other hand, I really want that week of my life back. And what I was able to differentiate was the use of nostalgia between the 2 mediums. Specifically how it's used in both healthy and toxic means. In order for us to understand how nostalgia affects Ready Player One, the book, and the movie in both positive and negative lights, we must first understand what nostalgia is. The textbook definition of nostalgia is a sentimental longing or wistful affection for the past, typically for a period or place with happy or personal associations. The phrase itself was created by a Swiss medical student named Johannes Hofer in 1688 after reading Homer's Odyssey and Virgil's Aeneid. He crafted the word from 2 of the Greek words from both pieces respectively. Nostos, which means homecoming, and algos, which means pain or ache, in order to refer to the amount of homesickness that Swiss mercenaries felt while fighting in foreign lowlands. However, because a lot of the military physicians associated such behavior to ear and brain damage, and even showed that there were symptoms like fainting, fever, and sometimes death, nostalgia was listed as a mental disorder for the longest time. Nowadays, it's less of a mental disorder and more of just how humans work. It can help us gain a spark in our otherwise bland and uneventful lives by remembering a very awesome moment in our past. It can also open up old wounds we completely forgot about and help us realize maybe we weren't ready to move on like we thought we were. Nostalgia is a double-edged sword that functions both positively and negatively, and has various impacts on us both as individuals and as a society. It can help us accept the past for what it was and move on to the future with the knowledge to hopefully make it better. Or it can make us obsessed with turning back the clock and reliving the good old days. Now, Lindsay Ellis explained this a hell of a lot better in her video on Stranger Things vs. 2017's It Chapter 1. But if you don't mind, I'm going to take a crack at it in pretty much the only way that I know how. Nostalgia is Harvey Dent. Because... wait for it. Yeah, that's right, it has 2 faces. I'm of course talking about restorative nostalgia and reflective nostalgia. 2 tendencies of nostalgia as identified by the late Professor Svetlana Boym. To quote Janelle L. Wilson's piece on it in her book Nostalgia, Sanctuary of Meaning, restorative nostalgia is characterized by an emphasis on the lost home and the desire to patch up the memory gaps. Those who experience restorative nostalgia do not think themselves as nostalgic, rather, they believe that they are pursuing truth. This kind of nostalgia characterizes national and nationalist revivals all over the world, which engage in the anti-modern myth-making of history by means of a return to national symbols and myths, and occasionally through swapping conspiracy theories. Restorative nostalgia causes a want within us to rebuild the things that we associate are good, better, or greater than what we deal with today. It focuses on the nostos origin of the first portion of the word, because while we can't necessarily return home, we can do whatever we can in order to fill in those memory gaps, as she said. Reflective nostalgia, on the other hand, focuses on the second root word of nostalgia, algos. It focuses on the longing and loss, less about reclaiming the days of yore, and more on thinking about the overall as time passes by. Instead of trying to recreate the past, reflective nostalgia accepts the past for what it is. The past. So that we can appropriately savor the things that were awesome and address the things that sucked. As a bonus, some of us who have that viewpoint on nostalgia work to make the future better because of said reflection. However, as the book version of Ready Player One has shown, it's very hard for some people to let go of the past. During my week-long trek of reading Ernest Cline's Ready Player One, outside of becoming completely frustrated with how he constantly worked in TV and movie quotes in his dialogue and the constant bombardment of 70s and 80s references, the one line that stood out to me about what the overall tone of this novel was the line said by Ogden Morrow, the best friend and business partner of the deceased Willy Wonka of the story, Jim Halliday, during an interview Wade Watts recalled once the Easter egg hunt began. Jim always wanted everyone to share his obsessions, to love the same things he loved. It stood out to me because while the references were still in droves, it reflected how restorative nostalgia works in the real world. You find out more about how the Oasis works with different planets dedicated to different IPs. You find out about the Easter egg hunt, the Gunters, Anorak's Almanac, and Gun Torrent, in which you can find anything you need to download related to the hunt, which was how Wade Watts handled his own preparation. The use of the quote, "love the same things that he loved," is used predominantly after the latter, where Wade talks about how he spent 5 years researching every movie, every video game, every TV show, and every book that Halliday loved. These included what were called the Holy Trinities, famous real-life trilogies that reflect the love for science fiction and fantasy within real-life geek and nerd culture. 2 franchises that were part of the Holy Trinity, as mentioned in the book, were the brainchildren of George Lucas, Star Wars, and Indiana Jones. When it came to Star Wars, there's a specific order the book gives to watch the, at the time, 2 trilogies. The original first, and the prequel second. When it came to Indiana Jones, however, it's only the first 3 movies Halliday acknowledges. Anything from Crystal Skull onward simply doesn't exist. And in that comes how restorative nostalgia can become toxic. Gatekeeping. Are the problematic bitches gone? Can I continue? Alright then. So before I go on to explain, yes, there are definitely more examples of gatekeeping in the book version of Ready Player One than the one that I just recently gave. One specifically involves an argument between Parzival and H, where they talk about their favorite pieces of fiction from the almanac, how each of them give each other shit for liking what they like, and invalidating their significance by whether or not they were relevant in the overall hunt for the Easter egg. AKA, it's not canon, so it's worthless. But the fact that Indiana Jones and Star Wars are 2 franchises that have previously and recently been treated the same way respectively, just proves that as far as Ready Player One is concerned, truth isn't stranger than fiction, but on par. The hate or strong dislike of something new being added or done to things in which nostalgia is linked to for a very loud minority of people has given rise to the whole "you're destroying my childhood" period that we're currently living in. Using The Last Jedi as an example, the most extreme individuals took restorative nostalgia to dangerous levels by enforcing a sense of entitlement amongst those willing to go to the lengths to making sure the franchise isn't tainted or going in the wrong direction.
From a certain point of view.
A certain point of view?
The sad part is, this is one of the current situations such actions have taken place in, not the only. And it's damaging not only for the brand itself, but growing fandoms for said brand in the first place. Toxic members will constantly critique and harass you for, despite it being the same thing, liking an iteration of said thing that they think is trash. They won't let you have your TV shows, they won't let you have your movies, they won't let you have your toys or your games, all because it's either a bastardization of or inferior to what they grew up with. And when you try to experience said version to see what's so great about it, be it TV, movies, toys, or games, they then claim you're moving in on something that specifically belongs to them. When gatekeeping keeps you from liking the variant of the fandom that you like and liking the version that they like, then what's the point of even getting into the fandom in the first place? Why try to love the same things that he loved if they won't let you? Now, one can argue that this is not the intent of the book, but Ready Player One can't help but reinforce this behavior of fandom entitlement via restorative nostalgia through the way that Wade interacts with people and who he's influenced by. Luckily for us, the movie goes out of its way to rectify that. In my opinion, the movie version of Ready Player One works better than the book in a lot of ways. Certain points from the book take place in different points in the movie to give Wade's character proper pacing and development. 80% of the problematic material was either reworked or completely cut out, and unlike the book, the use of real-life pop culture references were restricted to that of visuals and story plot points, not unnecessary dialogue injections. And I focus on the latter because not only did it promote a more natural dialogue for us to gain a better understanding of the different characters and other perspectives other than Ernest Cline, I mean Wade Watts' perspective, but because the nostalgic age has been shifted to more of a visual representation other than the written perspective of a problematic protagonist, we're able to properly experience it through the face of nostalgia that works best when it comes to fandoms. Reflective. Instead of listening to Parzival and Artemis debate about who's best at joust and watching Wade show off how he knew every one of David Lightman's lines from the movie War Games, we got a race in a version of New York that was filled with references of things people of various ages grew up with that made audiences go, ah man, I remember that. Instead of listening to two characters put each other down for liking the things that they like, we're simply exposed to the amount of banter needed to establish the characters and their differences and how they're hunting for the Easter egg. Instead of being listed line after line after line of pop culture references and dialogue, we see characters and avatars that make us go, oh, it's Master Chief, oh, it's Tracer from Overwatch, or my personal favorite,
it's fucking Chucky!
A lot of the reason I realized, whether intentional or not, was due to the successes and the praises by the storytelling of Warner Brothers' first attempt at a Ready Player One-like story, the Lego Movie. Like Ready Player One the movie, it also had a heavy reliance on nostalgia, and also utilized the face of reflective nostalgia as its main marketer. Which is completely fair. Legos have been around for ages and have a collection of sets for pretty much every fandom under the sun at this point. What puts it above Ready Player One the movie, however, is that it addresses how restorative nostalgia can brew toxic gatekeeping behavior in response to a newer generation, both through the use of social commentary in the form of the villain president business / the man upstairs, and as the moral of the story overall. And while Ready Player One the movie doesn't necessarily follow the social commentary of the dangers of restorative nostalgia if left unchecked, due to its messages being a trifecta of anti-corporation, pro-free speech / safe spaces, and the moral of live your life to the fullest, Ready Player One the movie took the aspects of reflective nostalgia made by the Lego Movie as a way of how to properly adapt the book to screen. Like, don't get me wrong, the movie still has its problems in its own right and doesn't really have that much rewatchability, but in comparison to the book, Ready Player One the movie properly highlights how nostalgia should be handled in a story surrounded by so much of it from various fandoms. It does a good job in picking up the weight that the book didn't even try to carry in the first place. Now readers, despite the points that I made in this video, this is not me saying that restorative nostalgia is bad and reflective nostalgia is good. After all, I'm pretty sure there are plenty of examples out there proving the opposite for both faces of nostalgia. But after reading Ready Player One, and then watching Ready Player One, And then come to the realization that I like the adaptation more than the book because of one of the three reasons being how they properly distribute pop culture and the overall use of nostalgia. Only to then turn around and see everything that's currently happening in multiple fandoms simultaneously and how they echo what I had to deal with in reading the book. I would be lying my ass off if I said that I didn't just look at the commotion, fold my arms, take a deep breath and let it out and go, why can't this be like the movie?